Think for just a second. If something really serious happened right now, how many people could you actually call? Not contacts in your phone. People who would actually pick up, who would show up, who you trust without hesitation. For a lot of people, that number is smaller than expected. And the strangest part is not knowing exactly when it happened. You didn't fight with anyone. You didn't do anything wrong. Friendships just faded slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. And if that's happening to you, I need to tell you something. It's not weakness. There's a real biological reason behind it. Researchers spent decades studying exactly what happens to the brain when your social connections start to disappear. And what they found completely changes the way you understand what you're feeling right now, or what you felt before. Because this isn't just loneliness, it's a neurological process that affects your body, your health, and your mind. There's a specific moment in adult life when friendships simply stop happening on their own, without any warning. In childhood and adolescence, you didn't have to try. Friendships just happened from sharing the same space. School, college, your first job. Those environments created automatic proximity, and that proximity created real bonds. But then life got more complicated. More responsibilities, less time, fewer spaces where you're forced to be around people. And contact got more spread out. 1 week without talking became a month. A month became 6. 6 months became silence. Researchers call this friendship drift. When two people stop crossing paths and the bond quietly disappears. And the cruelest part is that nobody decided to end it. No argument, no betrayal. It just faded away slowly. Studies show adults between 30 and 50 experience peak responsibilities and the deepest value of friendships. Work, kids, bills, health. Everything competes for the time that used to go naturally to the people you loved. In place of real friendships comes a comfortable illusion. Likes, shallow exchanges. But your brain knows the difference. When your brain detects social isolation, it goes into alert mode. Not metaphorically, it's a real physical response. In 2003, researcher Naomi Eisenberger conducted an experiment that changed social neuroscience forever. She placed people in a brain scanner and had them play a simple game where they were excluded by the other players. What she found was shocking. And social exclusion activated the exact same brain region that processes physical pain. Same brain area, same type of signal. Being ignored is neurologically painful in the exact same way as a physical injury. This explains something you've already felt, that ache in your chest when someone doesn't respond and you feel invisible. It's not drama, it's not weakness, it's your nervous system responding to a real threat, the same way it would to a wound. And when isolation continues for weeks or months, the brain starts interpreting the social world as a dangerous place. It starts reading neutral expressions as hostile. Ambiguous situations become threats. The social perception gets distorted. And this is where the hardest cycle begins. Isolation doesn't just hurt, it actively makes the way out more difficult. If you're already recognizing yourself in all of this, hold on. What comes next will change how you see all of it. If this is already hitting close to home, just wait. Subscribe, because what comes next might change how you see yourself. There's a cruel paradox inside social isolation that most people never notice while they're still stuck in it. The more time you spend without real connections, the harder it becomes to build new ones. Not from lack of will, biology. The isolated brain enters a state called social hypervigilance. It starts looking for rejection before it even happens. A message without an immediate reply becomes proof the person doesn't want you around. A missing invite becomes confirmation. The brain starts protecting you from a pain it already knows. And the best way it finds to do that is avoiding contact first. So you stop sending the message, cancel the plan before making it, convince yourself you'd rather just stay home. And out there, it looks like everyone has plenty of friends, plans every week, deep and effortless connections all around. But that's the cognitive distortion of isolation speaking. Research consistently shows that most adults feel equally alone. A study by the University of Chicago with John Cacioppo found that over 40% of adults report chronic loneliness. You are not alone in being alone, but your isolated brain will do everything it can to convince you otherwise. There's a massive difference between being alone and feeling lonely, and that difference lives entirely inside your brain. You can be surrounded by people and feel completely invisible, and you can be in complete silence and feel totally at peace. What determines loneliness isn't the number of people around you, it's the perceived quality of your social connections. And here's what surprises researchers most. A few deep friendships protect you far more than many shallow ones. John Cacioppo spent 30 years studying loneliness and reached a conclusion that contradicts what popular culture teaches. It's not the quantity of social interactions that matters. It's the feeling of being truly seen and understood by someone. A single honest conversation per week can have more neurological impact than 10 superficial encounters in the same period. And this explains something many people feel but can't name: social exhaustion after gatherings that should have felt good. You spend hours with people, come home drained, and still feel empty because your brain didn't get what it actually needed. The brain needs real presence, not social performance. And in today's world, the gap between those two has never been wider. Now comes the part that most videos about loneliness completely ignore. What happens to your physical body? Chronic social isolation doesn't just affect your mood. It alters the functioning of entire systems inside your body. A meta-analysis by Julianne Holt-Lundstad examined data from over 300,000 people across studies worldwide. The result was direct. Chronic social isolation increases the risk of premature death by up to 29%. That's not metaphorical language. That's epidemiological data. Isolation is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The mechanism is cortisol. The isolated brain keeps the body in a constant state of alert, elevating the stress hormone. With chronically elevated cortisol, the immune system weakens, sleep worsens, inflammation increases, cognition drops. Chronically lonely people get sick more often, recover more slowly, and show significantly lower cognitive function. A University of Michigan study showed chronic loneliness accelerates cognitive decline in adults over 50 years old. Isolation isn't just emotionally painful, it is literally a risk factor for your long-term physical health. In 1938, Harvard launched what would become the longest study ever conducted on adult human development. For 80 years, researchers followed hundreds of people, their careers, health, relationships, and life decisions. The central question was simple: what actually makes people live long, healthy lives filled with meaning? They measured income, education, IQ, genetics, health habits, everything science could track across 8 decades. And when all the final data was analyzed, a single variable stood above every other factor, without exception. It wasn't wealth, it wasn't intelligence, it wasn't genetics, it was the quality of your social connections across a lifetime. Study director Robert Waldinger put it simply: the most connected people live longer, get sick less, and are happier, and the most isolated, regardless of how many resources they had, showed faster decline in health, memory, and well-being. 80 years of data, hundreds of people tracked from start to finish. The answer was always the same: connection matters, not as an emotional luxury, not as a personality detail, as a fundamental biological need for human survival. If social connections are so fundamental, why does the adult brain resist building new friendships so strongly? The answer lies in social neuroplasticity and in what happens to it after you move past your mid-20s. In adolescence, the brain is in maximum social expansion mode. Creating bonds is easy, natural, almost automatic. But in adult life, the brain starts prioritizing efficiency. It prefers deepening existing bonds over building new ones. That means getting close to someone new requires real neurological effort, far greater than it felt at 18. And when a history of isolation is present, the brain adds an extra layer of resistance, the fear of social rejection. This resistance isn't laziness, it isn't introversion. It's your brain's protection system operating exactly as programmed. Researchers found that lonely adults show significantly greater amygdala activation during new social interactions. The amygdala is the brain's threat processing center. It fires before you've even consciously processed the situation. So you feel the discomfort before understanding why, and the brain reads that discomfort as confirmation of the danger. Here's the shift that changes everything. The adult brain didn't lose the ability to bond, it just changed how it does it. Social neuroplasticity doesn't disappear in adulthood, it gets slower, more demanding. But it stays completely active, and recent research shows the adult brain responds to a specific trigger that the adolescent brain didn't need: intention. In adolescence, friendships happened by accident of proximity. In adult life, they happen through deliberate presence. This doesn't mean forcing shallow connections. It means creating the conditions your brain needs to lower its guard. Repetition and low risk. Those are the two ingredients neuroscience identifies as the foundation of real adult reconnection. Repetition because the brain builds trust through accumulated consistent presence, not through one deep conversation. And low risk because the isolated brain needs enough experiences that prove contact won't always end in rejection. It's not about finding the perfect person. It's about creating small, repeated moments with people already in your life. Your brain doesn't need a new best friend. It needs enough evidence to start believing that connection is still possible. If you made it this far, you probably recognize yourself in this story. And that alone is more than most people do. Most people feel isolation creeping in and assume something is wrong with them, that they're too difficult, too much. But what the science shows is different. What you're feeling has a name, a cause, a documented neurological mechanism. It's not a character flaw. It's your brain responding to modern adult life the only way it knows how, protecting itself. The most important thing you can do isn't force sociability. It's giving your brain evidence, not just effort. A message sent today, a plan made for no special reason, an honest conversation with someone already in your life. That's what reconnects the brain. Not grand gestures, not dramatic fresh starts. Small, consistent presence over time. Tell me in the comments, when was the last time you had a real conversation with someone? No rush, no screen in between. The Harvard study took 80 years to confirm what your biology already knew. Connection isn't a detail, it keeps you alive. If this helped you understand yourself a little better, subscribe. More stories like this are on the way. See you in the next one. So,